The Washington Post has obtained an internal memo from the IRS, which kind of puts the lie to President Trump's refusal to release his tax returns. The memo says the Treasury Secretary doesn't have the authority to refuse Congress's request for the returns because the law doesn't give the Secretary that authority. The law gives the committee the rights to see them if it wants to. So the Trump administration, of course, is going to fight this in court, and a judge has said that they have no standing either. So we'll see what happens with the legal fight. It seems like claiming executive privilege is Trump's only out at this case, at this point. But how you claim executive privilege for documents generated before you were president, that's a neat trick. We'll see if he can pull that off, if it comes to that. But the point I wanted to address was something that President Trump has said since before he was President Trump, right? All during the campaign, he said, you know, I'd love to release my taxes, show you all what a bajillionaire I am, but I can't because there's an audit, right? And the instinctive response to that, I think, is sort of sympathetic. Oh, okay, well, there's a process going on. People are looking at this, and we don't want to mess up the process. And where you hear this most often is in criminal prosecutions, right? Some white-collar crook, in the rare instance one of them gets caught, they get shepherded out in front of the cameras and they say, we can't comment, there's an ongoing prosecution. And you think, oh, okay, they're respecting the process, they don't want to interfere with the work of the legal process. But with the exception of cases where prosecutors or auditors or whoever have asked the subject, usually it happens with witnesses, right? If you've got a witness in an investigation, you don't want them sharing what they know, right? Because you're the only one who has that information and you have a specific strategy you want to pursue with that. But when it's a subject of your investigation, especially in a criminal prosecution, you don't know the specifics, right? So if the person who's being investigated goes out and tells their story, you now have more information because potentially they reveal things you didn't know, and potentially they contradict things that you do know. So if I'm a prosecutor, again, broadly speaking, yeah, Mr. Criminal, go out there, blab. It only helps me. And the other thing is to keep in mind is that we think of the IRS, we think of prosecutors and investigators as being sort of omnipotent with having bottomless resources. It's not the case. So if I'm looking at a decade's worth of tax returns from Donald Trump with global interests, right, and connections and claimed donations to institutions far-flung, obscure, maybe don't exist anymore, I don't necessarily have the resources to track all those things down. But if I get Donald Trump out there talking about it, or his tax returns are released, now essentially that's the equivalent of crowdsourcing your investigation, right? Anyone around the globe who knows anything about any specific thing that's claimed in there, boop, they now know, hey, wait a minute, that wasn't a charitable donation. You gave me that money in return for services or whatever it might be, and you're not entitled to claim a deduction on that. So the idea that not releasing the tax returns is in service of some greater investigative or oversight good is entirely upside down. And this isn't a huge revelation that I'm sharing here or anything, but coming into the Memorial Day weekend, I thought in case there are arguments around this point, it might help to have some ammunition on it. So there you go. And if there are any questions on what we do or on what I've been talking about right now, post them in the comments. I'll take a look and see if we can answer them. And I'll also ask you, of course, to subscribe, to like, to follow. We're TYT Investigates on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And we put out content on both of those channels. So I hope you'll follow for both our daily stuff that we'll be doing here and on Facebook, as well as our exclusive investigative and enterprise reporting. All right.